My cousin Patrick showed up at my company last Thursday wearing a polo shirt with my company logo that he had printed himself. He told my receptionist he was the new operations manager. She called me confused because we don't even have that position. That's when I knew my parents had finally made their move. I'm 34. I started my distribution company with my best friend Bobby 8 years ago. We handle logistics for small businesses across 3 states. Bobby is my COO. We built this from nothing. 2 guys with a used truck, and now we have 42 employees and a warehouse. Bobby has been my brother in every way that matters since we were 14. Patrick is blood family. My Aunt Janet raised him alone, and when she got sick during senior year, my parents took him in. They were supposed to raise us equally. Instead, they decided Patrick was the son they actually wanted. I got good grades and stayed out of trouble, and somehow that made me the boring disappointment. Patrick needed saving, needed extra attention, needed their unconditional support through every disaster he created. And here's where the trauma drops, folks. This is that classic toxic family dynamic where the kid who does everything right becomes invisible, and the kid who sets fires gets all the attention because he's struggling. Meanwhile, OP is out here building an actual empire with his real brother Bobby, and his parents are like, "But what about Patrick, though?" 20 years of being the reliable one, and all it got him was being overlooked. That's the thing about dysfunctional families. They don't reward success, they
Almost
resent
6
it.
years married.
Patrick went to prison 2 years ago for assault. He beat a guy outside a bar badly enough for 3 weeks hospitalization. My parents visited him weekly, put money on his commissary, hired his lawyer. When I pointed out maybe he should face consequences, my mother said I had no compassion and family supports family no matter what. 3 weeks in the hospital. That's not a bar fight, that's attempted manslaughter. And OP's parents are treating him like he got a parking ticket. Weekly visits, commissary money, a lawyer. Meanwhile, if OP probably jaywalked in 2003, they'd still be bringing it up at Thanksgiving. Family supports family no matter what. Ma'am, your nephew almost killed somebody. There's got to be a limit. There's got to be a line somewhere. He got out 6 weeks ago. Immediately, my parents started telling me to give Patrick a job. When I said I'd consider entry level if he passed a background check and stayed clean for 6 months, my father lost it. Said I was treating my own blood like a criminal. I reminded him Patrick was a convicted criminal. You're treating him like a criminal. He is one, legally, officially. The state of wherever has documentation. And honestly, OP was being more than generous. Entry level, background check, 6 months clean. That's not punishment. That's called basic hiring practices. You know how many companies wouldn't even look at Patrick's application? OP was offering a pathway, and they acted like he asked Patrick to crawl through glass. Then the demands escalated. My mother called, saying Bobby needed to go. She said Bobby had been holding me back, that Bobby only cared about his share, that Patrick could do Bobby's job better because Patrick understood loyalty. I told her she was insane. Bobby and I built this together. Hold on. Hold on. She said Bobby needs to go? The man who helped build this company from a used truck? The 50% owner? And Patrick, fresh out of prison, would be a better COO because he understands loyalty? Ma'am, Patrick's most recent demonstration of loyalty was assaulting a stranger outside a bar. That's not loyalty, that's rage. Bobby's been OP's partner for 8 years, but sure, replace him with the guy who makes polo shirts at home. That's when she said she would tell everyone what really happened in college. I laughed because nothing happened. I went to state school, got my degree, worked 2 jobs, graduated with honors. Most controversial thing I did was fail chemistry sophomore year, but she had a plan. She told me Patrick's girlfriend Leah had written a social media post claiming I assaulted her at a party in 2012. Leah and I have met exactly twice, both times at family gatherings with dozens of witnesses, but the post was written and ready. My mother said if I didn't do right by family, it goes live. She said blood comes first, and Bobby is replaceable. I need everyone to understand what just happened. This man's mother, the woman who raised him, just threatened to help publish a false assault accusation to destroy his life unless he fires his best friend and hands his company to a violent felon. His own mother. And she had this whole thing pre-written, ready to go, like it was a press release. Blood comes first. Apparently, blood also comes with fabricated felonies and blackmail. This isn't family. This is an organized crime unit with a matriarch. I hung up. That was Sunday. Thursday morning, Patrick appeared in my lobby with his homemade polo. 20 minutes later, my father walked in telling my receptionist Amelia he was the new HR director and needed employee files. Amelia called me. I told her to have them wait and I'd be down in 10 minutes. Then I called Bobby to my office. Time to explain why my family had just invaded our company. What happened in that lobby made everything worse. So Patrick shows up with his arts and crafts polo, and then Dad rolls in claiming to be HR director demanding employee files? Sir, you cannot just assign yourself positions at companies you don't own. This is an improv theater. And shout out to Amelia the receptionist who's just trying to do her job while this circus unfolds in her lobby. She did not sign up for this. Update 1. So Bobby and I walked down to the lobby together. I had already told him everything on the way down. His face went through about 6 different emotions, settling on pure disgust by the time we hit the stairs. Patrick was sitting in one of our waiting chairs like he owned the place. My father was standing at Amelia's desk, still insisting he needed the employee directory. Amelia looked relieved when she saw me. I told my father to step away from my receptionist desk. He started in immediately about how this was a family business and family had every right to be involved. I reminded him that he had never invested a single dollar into this company, had never worked a day here, and that his name appeared nowhere on any document. He said that was my fault for cutting out my own parents. This is a family business. No, it's not. It's a Bobby and OP business. Your name is on nothing. You invested $0. You contributed 0 hours. But somehow it's OP's fault for cutting them out? That's like me showing up at Apple headquarters demanding equity because my cousin's roommate once bought an iPhone. The entitlement is genuinely breathtaking. These people really walked in thinking they could just claim ownership of someone else's decade of work. Patrick stood up and walked over like we were about to shake hands and start his first day. He said he was ready to learn and that he knew Bobby would help train him during the transition. Bobby laughed out loud. Just a single loud "ha" that echoed off the walls. Bobby hitting them with the singular "ha" is sending me to another dimension. Not a chuckle, not a polite laugh. One single "ha" that echoed off the walls like a gunshot. That's the laugh of a man who has heard the most unhinged thing ever spoken, and his body just involuntarily rejected it. Patrick really said, "Bobby will train me during the transition." Like Bobby was going to hand over his own job with a smile. My guy, Bobby owns this company. There is no transition. That's when Patrick's whole demeanor shifted. He got close to Bobby and said that Bobby should remember he was just an employee, and employees could be replaced. Bobby is 6 years older than me and has 0 patience for intimidation tactics. He told Patrick that he was a 50% owner of this company, and the only person getting replaced was whoever thought they could walk in here with a fake polo and start making threats. Bobby came correct. The only person getting replaced was whoever thought they could walk in here with a fake polo and start making threats. That poetry. That is a bar. That's the kind of line you rehearse in the shower for 6 months, hoping you'll get to use it. Except Bobby just freestyled it because he's that guy. And Patrick really tried to intimidate a 40-year-old business owner by calling him just an employee. Read the room, Patrick. Read any room. My father stepped in and said this was exactly what he meant. He said Bobby had poisoned me against my own family, that Bobby was the reason I never came to holidays anymore, that Bobby had turned me into someone who would abandon his own blood. I asked him if he was serious. I stopped coming to holidays because every single gathering turned into a Patrick intervention, where I was expected to contribute money or time or excuses for whatever his latest crisis was. Classic deflection. Blame the outsider. It's not that your family is toxic and exhausting, it's that Bobby brainwashed you. Like Bobby is some kind of cult leader instead of just a guy who respects OP as an equal partner. And every holiday being a Patrick intervention is so real for families like this. You can't even enjoy turkey without someone passing around a collection plate for Patrick's latest disaster. That's not a holiday, that's a shareholder meeting for a failing investment. My father said that's what families do. They sacrifice for each other. He said I had this successful company and Patrick had nothing, and the Christian thing to do was to share my blessing. I asked him where his Christianity was when Patrick put a man in the ICU. Oh, now it's about Christianity. Now we're bringing Jesus into the hostile takeover. Share your blessings. Sir, your nephew isn't asking for a loan. He's trying to steal a company with fabricated assault charges. And OP coming back with, where was your Christianity when Patrick put a man in the ICU? Is the kind of checkmate that ends family reunions. You want to play the morality card? Cool. Let's actually talk about morality. Let's see how that goes. That's when things escalated. Patrick shoved Bobby. Just a hard push to the chest. Bobby stumbled back into Amelia's desk. I stepped between them immediately and told Patrick if he touched anyone in my building again, I would have him arrested, and his parole officer would be getting a very detailed call. Patrick just committed assault. On parole. In front of witnesses. In a building with probably security cameras. Because he couldn't handle being embarrassed by a man who actually earned his position. This is why Patrick went to prison in the first place. The second things don't go his way, he gets physical. And he just handed OP the entire case on a silver platter. Patrick backed off, but he was smiling. He said, go ahead, make that call, and see what happens when Leah's post goes live. He said I had until Sunday to make the right decision, or my reputation would be destroyed, and all my clients would know exactly what kind of person I really am. The smile is insane. This man just assaulted someone, and he's smiling because he thinks his trump card, a fake accusation, is going to save him. He's standing there like a movie villain doing a monologue when the hero already planted the bomb. Patrick really thinks he's in control here. He's got no idea what's about to happen. My father nodded along like this was a completely reasonable negotiation. He said they didn't want to do this the hard way, but I was forcing their hand. He said all I had to do was give Patrick a chance and make Bobby a silent partner instead of COO, and this would all go away. Dad is just nodding along to blackmail, like they're negotiating a used car. We don't want to destroy your life with false accusations, son, but you're making us. That's not negotiation, that's extortion. And they're doing it so casually, like they rehearsed this in the car on the way over. Just demote your best friend and give everything to the violent felon and we'll make the threats go away. I'm actually stunned at how comfortable they are with being criminals. I looked at my father and told him I needed him to understand something very clearly. I said I had spent the last 15 years watching this family choose Patrick over me for everything. I said I had made my peace with being the afterthought. But threatening my livelihood and my business partner with fabricated accusations was a line I never expected, even from them. This moment is everything. 15 years of being invisible. Of being the backup child, of watching Patrick get bailed out over and over while he got overlooked. And OP finally just says it out loud in front of everyone. I made my peace with being the afterthought. That's devastating because it's true. He accepted a long time ago that he'd never be the priority. But this was too far even for a family that had already gone too far 100 times. My father said I was being dramatic and that Leah's post was just insurance. He said once Patrick proved himself, they would delete everything and we could move forward as a family. Just insurance. False assault accusations are just insurance now. They're literally planning to destroy his reputation and they're framing it like it's a security deposit. Once Patrick proves himself, we'll delete it. Oh, wonderful. So after he successfully steals the company, he has 0 qualifications to run, then you'll stop threatening your other son. Father of the Year energy right here. 8 of my employees had gathered near the warehouse door watching this whole thing. 3 customers were in the parking lot. My mother pulled up in her Buick right as I was about to respond. She got out and walked straight toward me with her phone in her hand. She said Leah was waiting for her signal. She said all I had to do was say yes and nobody gets hurt. Mom pulling up like a mob boss with Leah on standby. All you have to do is say yes and nobody gets hurt. Ma'am, this is your son, not a hostage situation. But in her mind, it is a hostage situation. She's holding his reputation hostage for a ransom of, checks notes, firing his best friend and giving his company to a felon. And she said this in front of customers and employees. This woman has lost her entire mind. I smiled. Actually smiled, because this was the moment I had been waiting for. Oh, we're about to get into it now. That smile? That's the smile of someone who has been preparing for this exact moment. OP didn't panic. He didn't freeze. He smiled. because these people walked into a trap they didn't even know existed. Let's go! Update 2. All right. A lot happened since my last post, and my family is now in full panic mode. When my mother showed up with her phone ready to signal Leah, I told her to go ahead. Post it right now. I'll wait. She looked confused and asked if I understood what I was saying. I told her I understood perfectly and she should make her move. Post it. I'll wait. 4 words. 4 words that changed everything. You could hear the record scratch in Mom's brain. She came in thinking she had a weapon, and OP just said, "Shoot. I dare you." That's the energy of someone who's been carrying a counterattack in his back pocket, waiting for the perfect moment. Mom really thought he'd crumble, and instead, he called her bluff with a smile. Here's what my family didn't know. I've been preparing for something like this for years. Not this specific situation, but something. Patrick has been a ticking time bomb my entire adult life, and my parents have enabled every explosion. I knew eventually they would try to use him against me. I just didn't know how. This is why you don't underestimate the quiet kid who got good grades and stayed out of trouble. While Patrick was out there creating chaos, OP was building contingency plans. Years of watching the family implode taught him one thing. Eventually, they're coming for you. So he prepared. This is some Batman-level strategic thinking. He didn't know what they'd do, but he knew they'd do something, so he got ready for everything. 3 years ago, I started keeping records. Every family text demanding money for Patrick. Every voicemail where my mother guilted me about missing events. Every time my father called me selfish for building a life that didn't revolve around rescuing my cousin. All saved and backed up. This man has been building a case file for 3 years. While they were leaving guilt-trip voicemails and demanding money texts, he was clicking save every single time. That's not paranoia, that's pattern recognition. When you grow up in a dysfunctional family, you learn to document because you know your words will get twisted, your memory will get questioned, and you'll need receipts. OP understood the assignment. But more importantly, Amelia had been quietly recording video on her phone from the moment my father walked in demanding employee files. She got everything. Patrick threatening Bobby, Patrick shoving Bobby, my father claiming authority over my business, my mother arriving with her blackmail threat. All of it. Clear audio and video. Amelia the receptionist is the MVP, the real one. While everyone was focused on the drama, she was quietly documenting everything. That's not just good instincts, that's ride or die loyalty. She saw Crazy walk through the door and immediately went, "This needs to be recorded for legal purposes." Give Amelia a raise. Give Amelia a bonus. Give Amelia her own parking spot with her name on it. I told my mother that if Leah posted that fake accusation, I would file a defamation lawsuit against Leah, a harassment complaint against Patrick, and pursue assault charges for what we had on camera. I said I would also send the video to Patrick's parole officer and let them decide if threatening business owners and committing assault violated his release terms. He laid out the whole counterstrike in one breath. Defamation suit, harassment complaint, assault charges, parole violation report. Every single move mapped out. Mom came in thinking she was holding all the cards, and OP just flipped the table and revealed he had a royal flush the entire time. You can try to blackmail someone, but maybe make sure they don't have video evidence of your crimes first. My mother's face changed. She looked at Amelia still holding her phone. She looked at my father, then Patrick. She said I was bluffing. "You're bluffing." The last desperate words of someone who just realized they've lost. She's looking around like, "Wait, we're the bad guys on camera right now?" Yes, you are, and you have been for the last hour. The denial is strong, but the evidence is stronger. I pulled out my phone and showed her a message already composed to an attorney I had consulted 2 weeks ago when their threat started. I told her all I had to do was press send. A pre-typed message to an attorney. Ready to go. One button away from nuclear war. This man came prepared. He walked into that lobby with his finger hovering over the launch codes. While they were busy threatening him, he had already wargamed every possible outcome. That's not just smart, that's what happens when you grow up constantly having to defend yourself against your own family. Patrick lost it. He started yelling that I had always thought I was better than him, that I abandoned him when he needed family, that I only cared about money. He said I was the reason he went to prison because I refused to give him a job years ago and he had to do desperate things to survive. Ah, yes, the classic, "It's your fault I'm a mess" speech. Patrick beat a man so badly he was hospitalized for 3 weeks, but somehow that's OP's fault for not giving him a job 5 years earlier. The mental gymnastics. He had to do desperate things to survive. Sir, you didn't steal bread for your family, you assaulted someone. That wasn't desperation, that was rage. And blaming the one family member who actually has his life together is exactly why Patrick's life is in shambles. I told him I didn't give him a job 5 years ago because he stole from Aunt Janet's purse while she was in hospice. I said I watched him take $40 from a dying woman who sacrificed everything to raise him, and I decided right then he would never work for me. Yo! Patrick stole from his dying aunt? The woman who raised him? While she was in hospice? $40 from a woman on her deathbed? And OP watched it happen and never told anyone because Janet begged him not to? He's been carrying that secret for years, protecting Patrick's image, and the moment these people tried to destroy him, he finally let it out. That's not betrayal. That's a man who ran out of reasons to protect someone who never deserved protection. My parents didn't know about that. I never told them because Aunt Janet begged me not to before she died. She said Patrick was sick and needed help, not judgment. I honored that for years. But standing in my lobby, watching them try to destroy everything I built, I was done protecting Patrick's image. Janet asked OP to protect Patrick's image even after Patrick stole from her on her deathbed. And OP did it. For years. Out of respect for a dying woman's wish. That's the kind of person OP is. Loyal to a fault, keeping secrets that weren't his to keep, protecting someone who would never protect him back. But everyone has a breaking point, and watching your parents try to blackmail you with fabricated crimes tends to hit that point pretty quick. My father asked if that was true. Patrick didn't answer. My mother tried to pivot. She said maybe they approached this wrong, maybe we could talk like adults. She asked if we could go somewhere private and discuss options. Now she wants to talk like adults? Now? After the threats? After the blackmail? After showing up with her phone ready to destroy your son's life? Maybe we approached this wrong, is the understatement of the century. You didn't approach this wrong. You committed multiple crimes in front of witnesses and cameras. There's no private discussion that fixes this. I said no. I told them to leave or I'd call police for trespassing. I gave them until Monday to publicly confirm to anyone they'd spoken to that there was no incident in college or the lawsuit starts. They left. But Saturday, I got a text from my Aunt Janet's old neighbor Gavin. He said my parents and Patrick had shown up asking about me, asking if he remembered anything suspicious from when I was younger. They were building a case. They weren't backing down. They're going door to door trying to dig up dirt on OP. Like detectives. Like investigators. These people got caught red-handed with video evidence of their crimes, and instead of backing down, they're out here canvassing the neighborhood looking for anything they can use. That's not desperation, that's delusion. They really think if they find some random accusation from 20 years ago, it'll undo the footage of them committing blackmail and assault last week. Final update. 10 days. That's how long it took for my entire family to fall apart. Tuesday, I sent Amelia's video to Patrick's parole officer with a statement about the assault on Bobby. Wednesday, officers showed up at my parents' house. Patrick wasn't arrested, but his parole officer put him on mandatory twice-weekly check-in. OP stopped playing defense and went full offense. Video sent, parole officer notified, officers at the house. Patrick might not be back in prison, but he's now under a microscope. Every move watched, every check-in document. One more slip-up, and he's done. The man who walked into that lobby thinking he was about to become operations manager is now explaining to his parole officer why he assaulted someone on camera. Same day, my attorney sent a cease and desist to Leah about the defamation post. The letter made clear that publishing false accusations would result in immediate legal action. Leah panicked and called my mother crying, saying she never wanted to post it. She was just doing Patrick a favor. Leah folded immediately. The second a lawyer's letterhead showed up, she was on the phone crying to Mama, saying she never wanted to do it. Just doing Patrick a favor. Girl, the favor was going to be a felony. You were about to publish false assault accusations and you thought it was a favor? The whole house of cards is collapsing because none of these people actually thought through the consequences of their action. My mother showed up at my office Thursday. Amelia wouldn't let her pass the lobby. She stood there 20 minutes begging to talk to me, saying this was a misunderstanding. They just wanted to help Patrick. I was destroying the family over nothing. Amelia recorded that too. Amelia said, "Not today." Held that line for 20 minutes while Mom stood there begging. And recorded it. Again. Amelia is out here building a documentary at this point. A whole film series. Mom's calling it a misunderstanding. Ma'am, you showed up with your phone ready to signal a false accusation post. That's not a misunderstanding. That's conspiracy. And you're on camera. Again. How do you people keep forgetting about cameras? Friday, I sent the video to every extended family member I had contact for. Aunts, uncles, cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. Simple message, explaining my parents attempted to extort me into firing my business partner using fabricated assault accusations as leverage. By Saturday, my parents' phones were exploding. Family members demanded explanations. My uncle called my dad a disgrace. My mother's sister said she always knew they coddled Patrick, but never imagined they would stoop to blackmail. Sunday morning, all three showed up at my house. My mother crying, my father shouting before I opened the door. Patrick looking like he wanted to kill me. My father screamed I had humiliated them. He said I ruined Patrick's rehabilitation. He said I was no longer his son. My mother kept saying blood protects blood, that I betrayed them. They only did this because they loved Patrick. They showed up at his house. After everything, still screaming, still crying, still playing victim. You humiliated us. No, you humiliated yourselves on camera. You ruined Patrick's rehabilitation. Patrick ruined his own rehabilitation when he assaulted someone on parole. You're no longer my son. Honestly, that might be the best thing Dad ever gave him, freedom from this circus. I stood in my doorway and said the truth. For 34 years, I watched them choose Patrick over me. I worked harder, stayed clean, built something real, and none of it mattered because Patrick needed saving and I didn't. They didn't try to help Patrick get a job. They tried to take what I built and hand it to him. 34 years summed up in that door. Everything he never said, everything he swallowed, every time he watched Patrick get the attention, the support, the love, while he got overlooked for being too stable, too successful, too self-sufficient. Patrick needed saving and I did. That's the whole tragedy right there. He never needed rescuing, so they never saw him at all. My mother said that wasn't true. She said they loved us equally. I asked why she never threatened to destroy Patrick's reputation when he beat a man half to death. Why unconditional support only applied to him. No answer. I closed my door. They screamed outside 10 minutes before a neighbor threatened to call police. Blood comes first, she told me. She was right. I just finally put my blood first. That last line, though. Blood comes first. She was right. I just finally put my blood first. He flipped the whole narrative. For years, blood comes first meant sacrifice yourself for Patrick. It meant drain your resources, damage your relationships, enable every disaster. But OP realized his blood matters too. His life, his business, his future, his family. Bobby, Amelia, his employees, the people who actually showed up for him. He chose himself, finally. And that's not selfish. That's survival.